Welcome, welcome, welcome to this fabulous Whole Life Action Hour. I am Ocean Robbins, co-founder and CEO of Food Revolution Network. And I'm so happy to be here with you right now for this event. Now, first of all, let me say, disclaimer here, nothing you are about to see or hear constitutes medical advice. It is not a replacement for conferring with your qualified health professional or your own best wisdom. We're sharing information, resources, and tools to support you in your health journey. What you do with them is up to you. I am here today with an extraordinary man by the name of Erik Cutter. Erik is a regenerative urban farmer and a chef with a background in biochemistry and oncology. I'm sure that sounds pretty fascinating already, doesn't it? He is one of the stars of a film called The Need to Grow. It's a documentary that we produced, I was executive producer for, and we helped bring out into the world recently. The response has been tremendous. If you have seen it, you know a little bit about Erik already and his extraordinary story. Erik is managing director of Alegria Fresh. It's a zero-waste regenerative urban micro farm which employs organic soil-based growing systems designed to enhance human nutrition. He's got over 35 years of experience growing superior nutrient-rich produce using regenerative organic techniques. His mission is to increase vitality and combat autoimmune disorders by creating greater awareness of the numerous health benefits of enjoying fresh, locally grown food that's grown in biologically rich soil. Now, I want to put this in a little bit of context here because in the modern world, we face a kind of double whammy nutritional crisis. On the one hand, our soil is increasingly depleted, and research is showing us that modern fruits and vegetables have dramatically lower rates of protein, calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, iron, vitamin C, and every other nutrient we can measure than those fruits and vegetables eaten by our parents and grandparents, folks even 25 years ago. This is because our soil is increasingly depleted. And then of course, on top of that, we are hyper-processing our food, stripping it of its vitamins and our minerals. We are storing it for long periods of time, shipping it thousands, if not tens of thousands of miles all over the world. And by the time it reaches our plates, it's been stripped of most of the nutrients it had left. But there's good news here. You can turn all this around and you can contribute to a healthier planet while you are nourishing your body with the micronutrients that it needs to thrive. So that's what we're going to talk about here with Erik Cutter. Erik, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ocean. It's a pleasure to be here. That was quite a mouthful. I don't know how I'm going to follow
that. Well, hopefully with a mouthful of greens. Erik, you are such an inspiration because, you know, a lot of us talk about food and we think about food, but you actually grow it and you share it. And I think one of the things I want to honor you the most for, Erik, is that you share it with the next generation. Now, tell me what moves you to be such a champion for healthy food for our kids and especially for low-income communities.
Well, I don't have my own children, but I have nieces and nephews. And I guess one of the turning points for me as a serial entrepreneur and having practiced, made whole food a part of my lifestyle for 35, 40 years and grown most of the food that I consume. It became very apparent to me about 10 years ago when one of my brother's boys got a real bad kidney disease. And it was really because of too much salt, oil, and sugar in his diet. And that, I really got, upset at my brother. And I said, we've been talking about this for a long time and you're not controlling, you're being a friend to your little boy, Aiden, and you're not being how would I say, a parent. And I was kind of out of line because parents can do what they want with their children, but I saw him in the hospital hooked up and the doctor said, he's either gets a double kidney transplant or, we're going to lose him. And I thought to myself, wow, this is going on. Finally came home to roost in my own family. We have a very healthy family. My mother has always fed us tremendously fresh food and she's an amazing chef. And so I grew up in a family where we really ate good, nutritious, nutrient-dense food. But of course that, being 60 years old, that was 50 years ago where the state of our soils and plants in general and organics, et cetera, were under less pressure from all the toxins and pesticides, fungicides, et cetera, that we currently have in our system. So I looked at my little brother's boy and said, I have a responsibility, I think, to start sharing some of this information. And that's what kind of drove me to say, let's stop talking about it. Let's go do the work. I mean, and it's something I get irritated with. I get impatient with people that go to the internet and they think they know everything because it's all there. And it's true. Everything is there, both sides, whether you love coconut oil or don't, it's all there. Bottom line is that if we don't start doing the work and make a commitment to growing some of our own food or supporting farmers that are growing local food in the proper way, we are not going to feed our bodies with the nutrients that we need to protect our immune system. And the new research on the gut biome is amazing, because it's finally taking a look at not just minerals in soil, but biology of soil, which is really critical to our systems. What's the biology of our gut? How diverse is it? How diverse is the biology in the soil? And when you start looking at these parallel universes and understand that many of the most important cultivars or species of bacteria in healthy soil are also in our own gut, you start saying, wow, maybe we are more connected to the soil than we think we are. Maybe we should start focusing on those bugs, since they are such a predominant part of our immune system.
Well, so tell me more about that. I mean, I find that fascinating and also a little bit gross, but just being honest here. But because most of us don't go out there and eat dirt unless we're 3 years old.
Well, and
but are you kind of saying we should be, or how do microbes in the soil get into our gut?
Well, let's back up just a second and understand what we're made of. I mean, if you look at humans, are approximately composed of 20,000 human genes, and we're composed of several billion, it could be 2-3 billion microbe genes. So when you think about it that way, I mean, that's bacteria, fungus, viruses, and this is a protective colony that is very adaptive, and they're the manufacturing system in our body. So if you look at that ratio, you realize that we're really less than 1% human, substantially less than 1% human. But all we worry about is our human DNA and our genetics.
Yeah.
Look at another thing, just diverging for a second, you look at mitochondria, which basically mitochondria are little energy powerhouses, right? They exchange about 100,000 photons a second in our cells. Well, what's a mitochondria? Well, it's actually a bacteria. So when you think that all of our power plants and millions of, our cells, trillions of our cells are bacteria, you wonder, why are we not concentrating on feeding the microbes? And I think that's the newest and most fascinating thing about health, because the good news is you're not predisposed to your, genetic defects if you have them. You actually can prove that by looking at the horrible and epidemic rise in autoimmune diseases over the last 30 years that could never have happened due to human genetics. It's very social. It's quality, it's stress, it's a whole bunch of, factors. So, another thing we've got to look at is, since we all run on light, that leads me into another connection, which was fascinating me. Well, what do plants do? Well, they collect sunlight. They're, bringing down photons.
Yeah.
They're mixing that with CO2, and they're creating sugars, which is carbon. So carbon is totally our friend. Everything, all organic individuals are, the definition of organic chemistry is carbon-based chemistry. We're all made of carbon. So carbon is a tremendous friend of ours. It's just where are we putting it? If it's in the soil in good quantities, that's what the microbes eat. If it's in the air, that's what's driving our climate batty and changing, everything that we know about, and seeing, this massive claim in greenhouse effect. So growing more food locally is critical for several reasons. One, it hasn't traveled. When food travels, for example, let's say romaine, which is an incredibly healthy crop. Many people have never cut off a head of romaine and seen it bleed white milk. Never. And I say, if you've never seen that, well, then you've never eaten romaine within 24 hours of when it was harvested. That white milk actually is loaded with phytochemicals and antioxidants, and it actually drips off the bottom. It's extremely bitter. So if you're not eating romaine that actually bleeds white milk, you're eating old romaine. And there's some estimates out there that romaine after 72 hours has lost at least 50% of its nutrient load, including vitamin C, et cetera. And most, lettuces like that are, 3 to 4 days in distribution in markets, et cetera, before you have a chance to eat them, even if they started out beautiful and organic. So there's a deficiency problem. So we're eating old produce.
Right.
The other major one is if you don't have biologically rich soil, how can the plant become nutrient rich if it's not, if the gas tank isn't full and it can't uptake it into the plant?
Right.
So everything starts in soil, and that's really what we call regenerative urban ag. We're actually not using animals, which is another very important part of regenerative ag, to re-nutrify or replace the nutrients that are extracted by plants. But what we do is we build soil and put them in systems for the urban environment that is cycling nutrients because of its biological richness. And so that's what the microbes do for the plant. They actually provide, they break down and they chelate the nutrients in the soil and allow the plant to uptake it.
Fabulous. So we're touching on a lot of different things here, and I kind of want to drill down into them in a bit of a sequence, because this is all important, and I want to make sure our participants can really absorb this and also apply this, which is really the bottom line here. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about fresh and why fresh is best. I remember when I was a kid, I always had a garden growing up. When I was little, my parents grew most of the food in our garden, and we lived very, very simply in this one-room log cabin in the middle of the woods, as some of our participants know. And I remember going out there on all fours with my friends and pretending we were deer, and we would literally eat the plants like with our mouths without even touching them with our hands, And I now look back at that and think that was probably a pretty smart move. Talk about fresh. I just this morning, in celebration of this, I picked a few greens from the garden. It was pretty cool to eat them really fresh, like right after they're picked. So tell us a little bit about what gets lost. How fresh does it have to be optimal and to be acceptable? Like, with greens, for example, if they haven't started turning yellow, is that a good sign? If they're put right in the fridge, use them within 3 days. Obviously, the fresher, the better, but what's the deterioration lifespan like? And what percentage do you think of the nutrients are we going to lose after, say, 1 day, 3 days, a week, a month?
Yeah, well, just talking about lettuce like we just did, there's a lot of research on lettuce because it travels a lot and it comes in a bag. And so I never eat lettuce out of a bag, but
yeah,
3-day-old lettuce has lost 50 to 60% of its nutrient load. Other crops such as the root crops, beets, etc. You have a root saw. They have a little, shell on them that they can preserve a lot of their nutrients for a long time. They're kept cool. But to answer your question directly, I try to eat, within an hour. I basically have set my lifestyle up to where I am looking to eat light. I want to feed those mitochondria. And if if you drill down, it starts in soil. It has to be biologically rich soil. If it's biologically rich soil with a full load of nutrients, in other words, if it's biologically rich, it has a lot of humus. And a friend of mine, Graham Sate, has said it better than anybody else. If we don't, humans and humus mean the same thing. They're oven for the earth. And what we lack is humility. And what he means by that is we don't concentrate on the humus in the soil, which is really where it starts. So plenty of nutrients in the soil, a lot of minerals, good oxygen, water, and humus makes for a good environment for plants. Then they can uptake the minerals that are required for us. And when we consume the plant within a very short amount of time, and I can't give you exact hours, but I like to do it minimum same day. So, because there's another factor to this. The light energy in plants dissipates quickly, and we need to start studying how fast. So since we're creatures of light, we run on electricity. Our body is exchanging photons. Every sensory organ in our system is tuned to a frequency or a vibration. And we really don't talk about that in nutrition, but the frequency and vibrational qualities of food are critical. And that comes out of properly balanced, soil that has the right frequencies available. So it's about eating not only the rainbow, which you've heard before, different colored foods, but also about eating them fresh, which gives you a good light load. So the more light you can eat, and I'm working with a group of PhDs right now. We're trying to figure out how long do different types of plants store the light energy, and what are the minimum thresholds that humans really need to function at an optimum level. So if that gives you a drill down.
Sure. And for those of our participants who don't currently grow your own food, we don't want to make the perfect into the enemy of the good here. So what we're going to be sharing more about how you can grow food simply and easily. Even a small amount can give you a connection and an opportunity and open a door that could be life-changing. And at the same time, farmers markets, community-supported agriculture programs, local grocers that value having fresh produce and getting regular deliveries are all options. And you can find out when the produce deliveries come in. If you're in a small rural town and they get veggies on Wednesdays, make sure to go in on Wednesday to get the veggies while they're fresh, rather than going in on Tuesday and getting stuff that's a week old. So whatever the options are, just remember that fresh matters, and it can be really life-changing to enjoy delicious, fabulous, fresh food. And Eric, I want to touch on another topic that I think comes up for everybody when we talk about vegetables, which is, I kind of sometimes wish we lived in a world where, kale tasted as good as donuts. But to a lot of people, it doesn't. It's a bit of an acquired taste, right? Sure. So what do you say to folks, and you're working with kids a lot, right, who've grown up in a toxic food culture, who have become addicted to junk foods for the most part, and you're helping to inspire them around healthier eating and eating vegetables and fresh foods. What do you say to folks who just think that veggies don't taste good, or maybe they've never even really tried them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And of course, in my opinion, my humble opinion, sugar is the worst drug we have on the planet because it's so addictive and everybody loves it, and it's in everything. Everybody worries about carbohydrates as well as sugars. They're all, it all breaks down into sugars. So the bottom line is, if you wish to change your eating habits, it's very easily done if you understand that your tastes would change radically depending on what you eat. If you eat processed food, you get used to it and your body starts craving it because your body does crave sugar. Now, sugar can be found in many places. Every carbohydrate, every green plant in the planet's got carbohydrates in it, so it's got sugar in it. It has other chemicals, though, that don't make it sweet. So what I tell kids, first of all, is come out to the farm and taste different things that are really grown in the right soil. And for example, our celery, I have kids all the time say, I've never tasted celery that tasted like that. I have never tasted arugula that tastes like wasabi. My God, I've never tasted broccoli that's so powerful. I said, well, that's the way it's supposed to taste. And so what we've done is we've disconnected ourselves from well-grown food.
Yeah.
First thing I always tell kids is to use your taste buds. If it tastes really sweet, it's generally not great for you. If it tastes really bitter, it's generally great for you. So most of the bitter foods are the ones that are the best for you. Now, you can train your taste buds to have a little less desire to eat sweets. And, I work with a lot of mothers. The Moms Across America group is a big program where we're trying to find a way to help mothers and feed kids properly. And it's stop being their friend, be their parent, and start putting well-grown food wherever you can find it. And on that note, it's really important, I think, the country's migrated towards monoculture in massive farms. And that's a problem because that means that from the Midwest, for example, where you've got all these farms, food has to travel 1,500 and somewhere upwards of 5,000 miles. I mean, people call Santiago, Chile to Los Angeles farm to table. And not right. It's traveling thousands of miles. The carbon footprint is massive. And so we're doing two things that are wrong. We're not only eating food that's deficient, but we're also really pounding on the planet because of the carbon cost. And that's another thing I really try to take a look at. Eat local. And what does that mean? Well, that means you do a little bit of work. Stop being so lazy and start finding out who is growing local food. And don't necessarily always go to the market, the supermarket, and wait for it to sit in a warehouse and be put out and watered in a supermarket or put in a bag.
Yeah.
Find the farms, because farmers are under incredible stress in this country. And if we don't start supporting small farmers, we're going to lose a lot of the national resilience in this country that we were so powerful with. And it's happening. I mean, there's more bankruptcies than farmers now across this country,
Yeah.
almost comparable to India. So I really advise people to at least do the work. If you're not going to grow your own food, find out who is growing food and ask them how they grow their own food. Is it in soil? I mean, is it really nutrient dense? How do you make your soil? There's a lot of pieces to that.
Right.
And just like you would choose a nice bottle of wine, go out and find out where the best quality food is.
Yeah. So important, really. Thank you for that. Erik, let me ask you, building on this taste thing, I will comment first that there was a study done recently on human saliva, and researchers found that we actually secrete proteins in our saliva, and they impact how food tastes to us, as well as our ability to break it down in the mouth, which is really where digestion starts.
Right.
And the researchers ended up finding that when you eat vegetables regularly, your saliva changes in response to them, and they actually taste different. So while as kale will taste bitter to one person, it will taste less bitter and more sweet to another, because of the proteins in their saliva. And often it takes as few as 5 or 10 tries before that change starts to happen. So if you do think that vegetables don't taste very good, there is light at the end of the tunnel. It can get better. It can get easier. And Erik, you're a chef. So part of your artistry is to make healthy, fabulous foods taste good. So tell us a little bit about, maybe 2 or 3 of your favorite super nutrient-packed foods and how you like to prepare them.
Okay, let me back just one second on things. So we talk about nutrients and phytochemicals, but you were kind of alluding to what's missing in human beings as a whole, and that's enzymes.
Okay.
Enzymes are in living live food. And when you cook, and this will drop into the preparation of food. When you heat food, especially produce, over 118 degrees, you kill the enzymes. That's the threshold for enzymes. Now, enzymes, if you understand chemistry, enzymes drive all of they're the catalysts. They drive all the reactions in our body. As we age, we start losing the enzymes unless we consume them. So we actually need to consume more enzymes as we get older to make our bodies work optimally. And there's not a lot of people talking about enzymes. There's a lot of people talk about antioxidants and anti-inflammatories, everything else, because that's what's causing the chronic disease. But
yeah,
enzymes are critical. So one of the things I try to do every day is to have a fresh, fully colored up, rainbow salad with lots of light, meaning that it was just harvested. So there is no cooking. That is a fresh salad with all the enzymes loaded up. Okay?
Yeah.
There is a class of, so that's something I try to do every day. And I might graze around and go, when I'm watering my plants, I'll have a handful of arugula, I'll have a piece of celery, and just, graze a little bit. And since I'm, surrounded myself with this, it's easy. And it's hard for a lot of people that don't have the time and are not surrounded by the foods. But it's very critical because I'm replenishing the enzymes in my system that are required to have optimal health. The second thing is, if you're going to cook something, try to understand what you do to it. For example, I do love, there's nothing better smelling in the kitchen than, garlics, onions, and butter. My God, does that smell good? Add anything to that. So I will take root vegetables and cook them, slowly at a low heat for 15, 20 minutes. Beets, carrots, potatoes, especially new potatoes, broccoli, and some of the harder vegetables, but not overcook them, so that you've really got a full load of, variable load, all kinds of diversity in the pan, but you're also getting good fats and, high nutrient dense root vegetables. Another great class of vegetables to heat lightly would be the cruciferous vegetables like kale, cabbage, etc. They actually release more phytochemicals when they're slightly heated than eating them raw. And a lot of people don't like raw kale because it's really chewy and hard. So if you don't like that, you can steam it really quick, 20, 30 seconds. You can do a quick saute on it. So when I'm cooking, actually using heat, I'm actually trying to pick ways to prepare food that optimizes the nutrient delivery. And I try to make it very diverse. And that takes a little experience. And we've had a lot of questions on that, by the way. Thank you to you. And the need to grow is, what do I eat? It's a huge, huge issue.
Yeah.
And Mark Hyman just came out with a great book on it. He's one of my favorite people. If you start looking at what you put in your mouth as being the most important, and then concentrating on how do I make it taste great. For example, whenever I get a chance, there's turmeric, either fresh turmeric root, cinnamon, and black pepper. Black pepper and turmeric, the curcumin in turmeric is enhanced by the piperine in black pepper. So whenever I use turmeric, black pepper, you'll get much more absorption if you put them together and put them in a fat soluble, something like avocado oil. I don't like to heat extra virgin olive oil hot. I'll use more of a raw olive oil if I use that, or I'll use a coconut oil. Some people may not like coconut oil. Some people do. I swear by it. But they are, they're high smoke point fats. I don't use any of the, the other vegetable oils, the canolas or the safflower or anything like that. I just don't trust it. So that's just me. But garlic, onions, turmeric, ginger.
Yeah.
I always walk out. I pick fresh oregano, fresh thyme, basil. Whatever you can get into a dish. And if you can't get it fresh, then buy it as fresh as you can dried. So have a spice cabinet loaded with some of these, what I call adaptogenic herbs. So that's a big one. I always cook with adaptogens if I can. And we don't know how they work, in all the pathways, but adaptogenic herbs find a way to fill the holes in your nutrient, in your nutrition schedule. It's amazing.
Yeah, beautiful. I'm salivating. I love it. Thank you. In the modern world, a lot of us season our food with salt, oil, and fat. But using spices is so powerful. They have such healing power, and they also have incredible flavor, obviously. And so learning to make friends with your spice cabinet, and even maybe better yet, your your little spice garden, can make an incredible difference for your health and for your culinary life.
Well, I think for this show, if people would go and Google adaptogenic herbs, it's a really powerful subject. I mean, there's, rosemary, sage, all these brain health. I mean, all of a sudden you start realizing that, my God, just the common herbs that are sometimes grown around my house, lavender, amazing stuff you can get and dry yourself, and a couple days, and all of a sudden you've got a powerful concoction of brain health, cardiac, heart health, cardiovascular system, circulation. I mean, you increase your alertness, your awareness. You feel better, which is really the whole point to eating, right? And it's really pretty simple if you understand what spices to surround yourself with. And chilies, for example, 10 times the vitamin C of a lemon. You want good, if you like slightly spicy food, throw a lot of chili. And you like it lightly spiced, get a little in there, but get red pepper of any kind, cayenne, serrano, etc. So it's really not difficult if you start looking at what are the powerful foods that I need to get into my system, and try to surround yourself with them. Have them in your cabinet so they're, a hand's grab away. And that's, if you're interested, I'll talk about a smoothie recipe that for the people that are speeding, to work and have no time, I've developed a smoothie that's got about 18 different things in it that lasts from 8 till noon. And it's in a small NutriBullet 900, and it's fresh and it's easy to do, but you just have to surround yourself with a few superfood powders, a little bit of, fresh food, and some fresh fruits and berries. And you can make an amazing smoothie, in a beautiful macadamia nut base, and head to work. and drink that for 4 hours, and you wouldn't believe how you can feel. That's breakfast. That's breakfast and part of lunch. So there's all kinds of ways to accommodate a high speed, a lifestyle, if you will, and make sure that you're getting your nutrition in it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need to find ways to go fast without falling off the wagon.
That's a good way.
Yeah, thanks, Eric.
Right.
One thing that you are touching on with what you just said, you kind of implied it, but I want to underline it. The average American gets about 500 calories more than is recommended,
Right.
and the recommended amount may even be a little high for what's optimal. A lot of people fear that if they're eating a healthier diet, they'll feel kind of chronically hungry, because we are used to kind of stuffing our stomachs and feeling a little bit bloated, and that's somehow become comforting and comfortable to a lot of us. But there is another kind of vitality that comes from having tons of micronutrients in your body, so that you really have everything you need, and you feel lighter and freer and crisper and more nimble, and you don't feel weighted down by your food, you feel lifted up by it. And I think that's kind of what we're going for. And with the kind of micronutrients that you get from the kinds of foods you're talking about, then that's what food can do for you. It actually becomes a wind at your back to help you be more alive and more lit up.
I think what you're saying is we've all been taught that we count calories. Well, everybody counts calories. Our body does not count calories. It counts nutrients. So the more nutrient dense food you eat, the faster you get filled up. And you'll actually get the satiation response from nutrient dense food on far less high calories. So when you're eating hollow calories, such as highly processed foods that are not nutrient rich, what you're doing is really filling your body with hollow calories. And that's where you're putting on weight. It's being stored, it's not being used, and you're kind of generally starving in place. Right. You're walking, you're slowly starving your body because it's got plenty of calories in it, but it doesn't have the nutrients. It's kind of like drinking, when you go out for a hard workout and then you just come home and drink pure water. Well, you're going to hydrate, but what are you really missing? You're missing electrolytes. So it's getting those electrolytes back in your system plus hydration.
Yeah.
So these micronutrients are critical, and we're starting to get an understanding about, what is the minimum level of micronutrients we should eat every day. Now, I'm not a big supplement guy. I don't really take supplements. I might take a couple, and it's the couple that that are. I might take ashwagandha for example, some of the adaptogenic herbs I don't grow, and other high power antioxidants, but very few of them. I don't believe that supplements really solve the problem, and that's why they're called supplements. So if you eat a whole food diet, you don't really need supplements, because everything you can find that your body needs is in whole, fresh food that's harvested very close to the time. I mean, it's consumed very close to the time that it's been harvested.
Yeah.
So that's what we've got to kind of get back to, is how do we, we only got so much time to put food in this boca. What do we put in there? And I think that's where a lot of what we're doing, you're doing, I'm doing, we're trying to figure out how to make that easier for people. And it really boils down to well-grown whole food as often as you can possibly eat. And I would say that 80% of our diet should be whole food, uncooked. And if you could do it that, I think you can eat anything else you want. Have the ice cream, have the cheese, have the wine, have the meat, have whatever you want. I happen to be a Viking, not a vegan, but I eat primarily a plant-based diet. I really like the Mediterranean diet. So 80-90% plants. And I really believe that diet is perfect, especially for people suffering from chronic disease. Go to a plant-based diet.
Well, each of us finds what is right for us. I don't think there's any one size fits all formula for anybody. But what you're saying is borne out by so many studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals. Eating whole food, mostly plants, not too much, is going to be best for optimal human health. So Eric, I want to talk a little bit about one of your true expertises, which is growing food and growing nutrient dense food. And, we talk about, we're sharing about the joys of fresh. There's nothing more fresh than what you can grow yourself, right? So let's talk about that a little bit. And a lot of folks struggle with time and space issues as well as know-how. So what's the simplest way? Let's suppose somebody's watching right now who doesn't have a garden. How do they get started? suppose they don't have a lot of space or time. What's the best way to get like one step forward, first step for somebody?
Well, that's a great question too, and it's not an easy one. We've developed what we call the SoxBox system. It's SOXXBOXX, and you can find that at the .com. And what that is, we're trying to take powerful soil out of the equation because we really know more about the moon than we know about soil. So it's very difficult for people to understand what soil is good, what's optimized, what's biologically rich, what's got a full tank of minerals in it. And so we are blending soils and working with Kellogg Gardens, the organic soil company, and developing soil blends that can be put in a polypropylene sock. And it's basically a container system that breathes. Now, we make all kinds of different sizes of these, and they get very heavy when they get into the 4x8, and they're in a tray, and there's 6 socks in a tray, but it's about a 500-pound load by the time you water it up. So to answer your question, how can we help people use SoxBox? We're designing a mini SoxBox system now for people that is a little 2x2. It's got 2 2-foot sock in there, and it can be shipped without soil across the country, which I don't believe in shipping heavy soil and using carbon to ship it. I mean, once again, you have to start looking at the carbon footprint of shipping everything.
Yeah.
We really want to make a dent on our, and help our environment out. We've got to reduce the amount of carbon that we're expending transporting not only food, but everything else. And so we're going to send out a mini SoxBox, which we're working on right now. We've got a design that will not have our soil in it, but we'll be able to recommend a soil that you can go grab at your local Home Depot. And we're going to provide a little magic power kit in there that has all kinds of some of my secret ingredients that go into a really good high quality bag of organic soil, or like what you'd say is potting soil.
Yeah.
So that would make this nationally available to everybody. And so keep a lookout for our mini SoxBox system at soxbox.com. In about a month, we'll start showing it. And then people can start ordering that. And you can grow at least 4 to 6 very, very healthy plants in this. I mean, I grew 5-foot tomatoes and produced 500 tomatoes out of one of these little 2x2 boxes this year. And it will have a little bit of nutrients in it. It's going to be a system where you can actually go buy your favorite bag of potting soil. We'll recommend some, blend it with our minerals, inoculate it with our amendments, and then put the plant in there and get out of the way. So we're going to take the soil problem out of there, which should make, growing really optimized food a lot more fun and a lot more successful. Because all I keep hearing is, God, I grew good tomatoes last year, but I couldn't this year. So, well, that's a soil problem.
So if you don't have a big backyard or garden space and you're living in an urban environment, this is an incredible way to bring the food to you and have amazing soil and amazing food. 500 tomatoes, you said, in one of these things.
Yeah,
amazing. Again, that's SOXXBOXX.com. It's not available as of this recording, but it will be in the future. And so go ahead and check back and learn more about the whole system right there, right now at soxbox.com. Wonderful. Thank you, Erik. I want to talk for a moment about compost, because it seems that one of the great tragedies of our time is that most of our compostable organic waste is going to landfills, or it becomes a toxic pollution problem and emits methane gas into the atmosphere. And yet this is actually an incredible resource. Tell us a little bit about compost.
Well, once again, when you're, to recycle organics, we've all got to really start thinking about that. When you talk about methane release in a landfill, you're talking about a compound. Methane is 34 times more potent than CO2. So if you really want to try to estimate what's going to happen to this planet because of the greenhouse warming, and you're not really taking into consideration methane from landfills, and even a more important one, methane from Alaska and permafrost melting, where you can actually light this methane on fire in the snow and watch it burn. Bottom line is we're going to pull. We're putting the poles of this planet already to a tipping point at over 3 degrees Celsius. It's just going to ramp up at many times faster. So environmentally, putting carbon-based recycled materials into landfills is going to be very detrimental to our environment. What I do here at the house, be a good living example is that I have a garbage disposal, nice, powerful 3/4 horsepower garbage disposal. I never grind anything in and never send it down into the water stream. If it's carbon based, if it's clippings or anything that food waste that especially vegetables, etc., not including meat or not including citrus, I will take it and simply compost it into a little, container on the side of my counter. That goes out into a little bucket, and then it goes out into a compost bin on the deck. Now, in about a month and a half, that compost has turned into beautiful, biologically rich soil. And it's really simple to do. I mean, I actually throw out 1 bag of waste, a 2 cubic foot of bag of waste every 2 weeks. That's what and I've got a big house here in Laguna Beach. So we've got our waste down to almost nothing because we say, is it carbon based? If it's carbon based, let's turn it into soil. So personal composting is very, very important. Now, a lot of people think it's messy and a lot of people think it attracts flies. And that's not the case if you do it properly. So I won't get into all the techniques on it, but good compost should be about 50% what I would say green waste and 50% brown waste or dry waste, which is carbon. The green waste is nitrogen. So about a 50-50 blend. If you have a compost bin outside, and I mean, I use a little 55-gallon Rubbermaid tub with a lid on it. You can take all of your clippings, put it out there, your banana peels, all these things that'll break down quickly, throw in a few red worms and throw a tiny bit of soil on top. And in 2-3 weeks, you can already see it breaking down into beautiful soil. I do one more thing here too. I actually have a tea brewer, which is something that most people don't do, but I take my compost and actually make a compost tea at the house. So I can make all my own fertilizer too, very simply here. I don't actually need to go find any outside inputs at this house. So I can grow beautiful food with all the recycled organics. So how do people do this in real life? I think the first step is to just start to understand and be aware that we need to start reusing carbon. And carbon is anything organic. And everybody can make a massive difference by reusing just a little bit of carbon and not sending it into the waste stream because we're used to it. So.
Yeah, great. There's also an article on Food Revolution Network's website. If you just Google Food Revolution and then type in the word compost after that, it'll pull it right up, or go to foodrevolution.org and search for it. 5 Secrets to Composting at Home by Stacy Murphy, who's a brilliant composting teacher and gardening teacher. It's very doable and it's so worth doing. It's really satisfying. And you're literally taking an environmental disaster and turning it into gold, in a sense, soil gold, because compost is so rich. It's so full of nutrients, and it's just what your backyard needs.
And biology,
And biology. Thank you for that. Yes, so many microbes. If you see little worms in there, you can just start do a little jig. Life is happening.
You mentioned something really interesting that, there's a book out called Eat Dirt, of course, but I love any dirt. But as a kid, you would run around and you would just, graze outside and you'd crawl in the mud. Well, there's a problem with toxins nowadays that would prohibit most kids from going out and eating the dirt around your house, or it depends on where you're living, etc. However, when you eat like that, you're exposing yourself to a massive biodiversity of microbes. I mean, if you can eat your own vegetables without washing them, I never wash my stuff. In fact, if it's got a little tiny bit of my dirt on it, fabulous. I mean, if you take some biologically rich soil on the tip of your finger, there's over 1 billion microbes in it. Now, we've only studied about 1% of that, so we don't know anything that's going on, but we know there's billions of microbes in there. So you really inoculate yourself with generally very healthy bacteria if you're eating food that is grown in healthy soil. And that, I mean, we're coated with microbes all over our skin everywhere. So as a kid, you actually enhanced your immune system 100-fold by being in that environment. So thank you to your parents for that, because that's what we need to start teaching again, is we've got to be probiotic, not antibiotic. That's a huge one.
Yeah.
We're all becoming, afraid of microbes. No, microbes are completely our friend. Now there's some
Yes.
bad ones, but if you got enough good ones, they'll beat up the bad ones real easily.
Yes. Yes.
That goes with disease on food too. I mean, there's a lot of, pest management. Well, healthy soil gives the plant immune system enough power to resist a lot of the pathogenic bugs.
Yeah. And we're now finding that that some of the plant immune system properties are also some of the most potent antioxidants that are beneficial for human health. Eric, we've got a lot of questions from our Whole Life Club members. This is a Whole Life Action Hour, so Whole Life Club members have access not just to these presentations, but also the chance to submit questions in advance and the written transcripts and follow-up action checklists afterwards, along with a lot of other resources. Some of our members have submitted questions, and I would love to, now there's a lot of them, and so I'm going to ask you to do something a little different than we've been going so far. Let's go for hyper brevity if we can. We can cover a lot of these swiftly. Patricia said, I don't know how to garden. Where do I start? Dry compacted soil in my backyard. I live in San Diego County. How do I make a healthy garden? And what's the best way to combine plants to ward off pests? Obviously, we could do hours just on that, but what's a high-level guidance to get Patricia going here?
Well, let's just answer the part, how do I get started?
Yeah.
Find some very good quality compost, make it yourself, or find some locally and start adding it to your soil and keep your soil damp. I mean, what people don't understand is microbes are living organisms. If you let soil dry out, everything dies. And it actually takes 3 months or so for potassium to start cycling again, which is what the plants use the most of. So keep moist compost in your garden. Go to your site and look at the different ways to compost and start looking at what you're wasting and see if you can't use that as a nutrient. And so begin the process of healing or amending the soil. And there's a lot of there's a real simple way to amend soil too. There's fish hydrolysate, kelp, and humic acid. Those are 3 biggies. And so find a good source. Kellogg Garden Supply has beautiful products in there. They make a 131 and a 323 fish hydrolysate, a bloom, and a veg formula that you can actually start inoculating your soil with. So you're putting all these hundreds of organic nutrients into the soil so that you can feed the microbes that are in the compost. So that's the first step, is compost that's biologically rich, and then start feeding those bugs, and they will do their thing.
Yeah.
And if you a couple months, and generally you'll start seeing a massive improvement in the plant quality that you grow. So once again, feed the soil. Don't worry so much about feeding the plant. I never worry about feeding the plant. They know more than I do. Just put them in the right soil and get out of the way.
Yes.
That would be the way I would start all gardens, is to check out your soil and see if you can start amending that.
Yeah, and enhancing it. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And she also asked, what's the best way to combine plants to ward off pests?
Well, it's not the combination of plants so much as it is the plant's immune system. That does a lot of the warding off by itself. There are definitely ways to, this is where you get into permaculture and pairing of plants. For example, I will plant marigolds in there. They're a great plant. Marigolds are, where you get neem oil from, a lot of it. And so it's a natural pesticide, plus it attracts beneficial insects. So there's a lot of, you can look into, you can Google permaculture and what plants that attract good bugs. Chamomile is another one. You can, not only that, you can use the chamomile for tea, but it provides a lot of good, positive bugs in there. So
yeah,
there's all kinds of pairings. And like you said, you can go on for hours about this, but if you want to make a beautiful garden, plant marigolds and some other types of flowers like that in there that are beneficial.
And dot them through. Yeah, and garlic and onions, I think, too, can be good in that way.
Cilantro. Cilantro is another big one. I mean, cilantro repels a lot of insects because of the terpenes in it. And it's one of the greatest blood cleansers, so you get a double whammy on that one.
Cool. Rosie said, can string algae from my tiny fish pond be used as fertilizer or compost?
It can, sure. In fact, you can take some water from that pond that's loaded with microbes and pour it in there too. Absolutely. The algae is loaded with it will not hurt it. Let's put it that way. It'll create great food, and it's loaded with nutrients.
Great, thank you. Becca said, is it possible to tour Alegria Fresh? Do you offer any learning opportunities?
Yeah, we're at the Alegria Fresh. We've got a small demonstration farm at the Farm Plus Food Lab in Irvine, California. It's about 100 yards from the Big Orange Balloon ride. So if that's what you would GPS if you're locally here in Southern California. It is open. The Farm Plus Food Lab is a demonstration lab, basically, that we're putting in a medicinal garden. We have a SOX box section to it, a couple 1,000-foot SOX box garden. We've got a lot of raised beds, but more than anything, we're growing a bunch of really medicinal plants in there that you can take a look at and see what should I grow in my yard. And so that is open from 10 to 3, Tuesday through Sunday.
All right, thank you. And anyone can go to alegriafresh.com to find out more.
Yeah, and that's ALEGRIA fresh.com, not Algeria. Many things. Alegria, by the way, means joy and happiness. And so that's what we're all about, the joy and happiness of what beautiful food can give to you.
Beautiful. Robin said, I'd like to know what is the website to get the best organic seed and organic soil. Not sure if Home Depot or other local nurseries is best. And she's also asking about seasonality it's kind of what temperatures do you need in order to grow. She lives in Palm Springs, California, where it gets down into the 60s in the winter. Can she grow year round? Sure. Or do you kind of need to focus on springtime anywhere?
That's another 3-hour question if you go across the cultivars. But I love Johnny's Seeds back east. Johnny Seeds is a employee-owned company. They're very consistent. The Good Seed Company is another one. I would advise you to go into those seed sites and take a look at what seeds grow in what temperatures. Once you've decided what it is you want to grow, then you can actually go. I mean, Johnny's Seeds is Jonnys, Johnny's, J-O-N-N. Anyway, JohnnySeeds.com. Check out the cultivars that you're looking. They will have advice for you on the seeds, on what temperatures they grow in. But you can grow easily year-round in Palm Springs. You'll have a little trouble in the 110-degree summers, but it depends if you can use shade cloth or something like that for some of the less hardy crops. Then you can definitely grow year-round.
Great, and that's Johnny Seed, JohnnySeeds.com.
Yeah,
Make
they're
sure everyone knows.
a very reliable source and have lots of great information up there and all kinds of little tools and tricks.
Great. So Patsy asked, do GMOs and glyphosate, as well as pesticides and herbicides, dissipate through the composting process? She's wondering, like, if she wants to use manure and straw or newspaper that might have been printed with genetically engineered soy ink, are these going to end up, if they're composted properly, being safe to use on food?
Well, yes and no. I mean, glyphosate is definitely been called a forever chemical, like a lot of other ones, and so they last a long time. Can microbes break down glyphosate? Certain ones can, but it's a very complex situation. What I would do is look at the overall, take it from a big picture standpoint. We are exposed to not only glyphosate, which is very, very, it's everywhere, and it's in pretty much in everybody's system now, but about 5,000 chemicals are dumped into our food supply every year that we have no idea whether they're good or bad, and many of them are not good. So we're living in a toxic environment. I would say stop worrying about that. Get into building the best soil you can with the most biologically rich components. And we'll have some more information on our website here pretty soon, what you can do. For example, the fish hydrolysate, the fish hydrolysate, the kelp, and the humic acid is a great start to firing up the microbes in the soil. And in many cases, they will break down a lot of the pesticides, fungicides, et cetera, that might be present. But you really have no way of knowing. I mean, if you're going to start with source materials like manure, unless it's an organic dairy farm, which that's what I'd always choose, is make sure that you're getting your inputs from organic sources. That's your best. Got to be careful with horses. I mean, a lot of times horse manure, which is really great, has a lot of hormones in it, because especially if it's a racehorse track. And chicken manure is chicken dropping, fantastic. And if you've got chickens, use it. So really try to source organic inputs don't worry too much. Try to get into the game of actually growing some of the best food you possibly can, because there's a lot of foods that you can focus on that can remove glyphosate, heavy metals, et cetera, from your system. And I mentioned one of the big ones, and that would be cilantro. So Google foods that remove heavy metals, foods that remove toxins, and you'll see a whole list of foods. And that's kind of the way I would start. Build great soil and start figuring out and understanding what foods will detoxify my body daily. You know, so that's the secret. How do I detox daily? Every time I eat, I'm detoxing. Now, normal detoxification is there's three things the way it happens. It's poop, it's sweat, and it's peeing. And so another thing is exercise. Exercise is one of the greatest detoxifiers because you will remove a lot of toxins by sweating. And so remember, that's a huge component of, you know, feeling better in nutrition as well. And it does, I mean, exercise is what a lot of people are lacking. So good inputs in your system and good exercise is a great start.
Great. All right. Thank you. Linda said, I saw your clip that you used biochar and algae with great results. How did you apply these to your soil? In what form? And where do you get these super ingredients?
Biochar is pure carbon, basically, and it's a super ingredient, but you really only need very, very little of it. The algae, in the movie, you probably remember Michael Smith from AACT, Algae Aqua, and they did have an amendment, that is very powerful. It's not easy to get. Their plant up there doesn't make that much of it. But the bottom line is this. Once again, go back to the simple fish hydrolysate, kelp, and humic acid blends, which are in some really good high quality organic liquid fertilizers. And you're going to get just about everything you need in that. And when you look at the ocean, there's 105 rough minerals in seawater. And kelp is wonderfully rich in all kinds of nutrients. So when it's not easy to get algae-based nutrients, but you can use kelp. And kelp is fantastic. So,
yeah, thank you. Barbara said, I'm wondering about a product I saw you using. It looked like long tubes of growing medium and seemed like they might be ideal in my narrow side yards. What are they? Are they only for certain types of vegetables? Where does one get them?
Those are the socks, okay? What you're talking about is the polypropylene. It's an 8-inch polypropylene tube that breathes filled with our soil. And you can put them on the ground, or we put them up in the air in our socks box system, which is much more beneficial, because in the urban environment, you really have a lot of problem with rats and rabbits and squirrels, and especially in new developments where you're actually, raking fields clean of all the animals, and you're building houses over them. The animals have to go somewhere, so they'll go eat your garden. And so we like to put it up in the air and try to keep it away from these, from roads, etc. So if you go to Socksbox, you'll see a system we like, and it's basically in a tray. And one of the advantages of being in a tray like that too is you don't lose any water and you don't lose any nutrients, and basically the roots actually take advantage of a hydroponic uptake. So if it's in a tray, it's extremely water efficient, extremely nutrient efficient, and it's at your height. You don't have to bend over and reach for your vegetables. Which at 60 years old, I'm happy to not bend as all day long like I used to, even though I do a lot of it.
Yeah, I'll bet. Ruth asked also about the socks box. Is it only suitable for an urban environment, or could I use it to start a veggie garden in an area where there's plenty of land? I live in Indiana and have a big backyard.
It's really best in urban environments where you're trying, if you have good soil and you have land, you really don't need a socks box. The question is good soil and land, and that's what you have to decide. I mean, if you want to grow on the ground, I don't know how much land she might have, but if she had, an acre, she could easily, she could use a socks box system because of the advantages of it. But if you've got good soil, amend your soil and grow straight in the ground. So it both ways.
Thank you. Kathy said, I'm very interested in what I learned about socks boxes, the above ground tubes of rich growing soil we saw in the Need to Grow. And she's asking, you've kind of touched on this, but what are they? How do they work exactly? how do you plant in them, replenish the soil, maintain them, and how and when to water.
Right.
Maybe that all comes in the instruction manual.
There's a lot of information on Soxbox on that, yes, but
Yeah.
One of the most important things in order to make why we call it a regenerative Soxbox system is that once again, plants extract, and we keep forgetting that, you know, when you put a plant in rich soil, it's going to grow at warp speed and it's going to extract very quickly. So you make a beautiful plant full of nutrients, but it's taking it out of the soil. So you've got to get it back in. So feeding the soil is critical. The Soxbox system makes it real simple to feed the soil, once again, with those nutrients I was telling you about, you know, a combination of fish hydrolysate, kelp, and humic acid. And I've said it like 4 times, so maybe people will start remembering it. And you can buy this, you know, anywhere you can. That's a great source of replenishment for the soil.
Yeah.
And so the reason we like to put them in socks is that there's another major component of soil. It's called breathability, or, you know, tilth. And as if you were going to raise a child and you want him to be an extreme athlete, he would need to have big lungs, have a high VO2, a high ability to take in a lot of oxygen. Well, soil is the same way. If you treat soil like you treat people, you start realizing how much we have in common. So the socks actually allow the soil to breathe. And I mean, you could fill a tray with pure soil and not even use a sock. The answer is, why do I use a sock? Because the sock creates an oxygen barrier between the roots, actually prune through, and it creates microenvironments that are oxygen rich. So these roots actually stick out into the air, which is a type, it means taking advantage of an aeroponic function. The water that goes in the bottom of the tray actually gets uptaken by the roots, which is a hydroponic function, and it's inorganic. So we're actually taking advantage of aeroponic, hydroponic, and organic, which is not something we thought about when we originally did it, but we realized that why these plants growing so fast and so well? Well, it's taking advantage of multiple systems, and it's those microenvironments that do it. So that's where the socks in a tray system really excels.
Yeah, thank you. Bill said, do you have any suggestions to naturally increase nutrients like manure teas, use of worms, mulches, and cover crops? What are the top 3 tips to increase the health of veggies and best suggestions for fighting pests? We've touched on some of these things already. So I guess I'll just say, is there anything more you would add? Like, we haven't talked about cover crops at all in particular. And we also, anything more about fighting pests?
Well, cover crops, I mean, there's a lot of nitrogen fixing cover crops, you know, that if you want to do, we don't worry too much about cover crops because we're growing in socks boxes and we're not using it as a cover crop. But I actually have done something really interesting. I grow a lot of plants in 15, 20-gallon containers. And I've stopped dumping out that soil and replacing it. I'll actually finish the plant, pull it out, let the roots rot, and then I'll amend that soil in that pot and go back in a month later. And what I've found is that I've got a fully, you know, very rich load of biology in that, because of the roots are breaking down. All the organic matter that was there before is breaking down. Plus those roots create pathways for new roots. And worms are eating, everybody's eating all that organic matter. So instead of cover cropping, I might plant parsley in a 20-gallon pot. And now I'm starting to sequester more carbon in there. And then when I'm ready, I will plant whatever it is I want, a bigger plant. You can plant fruit trees, etc. So it's a way to take container gardening and actually turn it into a regenerative system, and not think that you should throw out your old soil. What you should do is say to yourself, what do I have here that I can put in that old soil? In fact, it can become a compost bin. I could take some of my greens and say, I've got 10, 20-gallon containers out back, dig a hole, put in my greens, and bury it. And in 2 months, all that's broken down. You've just repowered your soil. So there's a regenerative way to take all soil that you're looking at around your house and using and actually refurbish it. Now, compost teas work great. You got to have, you know, they can be either dry and brewed, etc. But that's more complex. I would say find ways to recycle your compost into some of your pots, give it a month, and look at it as like a cover crop where you're letting a field, you know, lay fallow for X amount of time. And
yeah.
you actually build that soil back up just by doing that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we have a question from Chris who asks, is there an impact to growing food in plastic pipes? I've seen towers filled with soil made out of them and aquaponic gardeners using them to grow herbs, but I wonder if the plastic can leach out of the soil or water and into the plants.
Well, most plastic systems like that might be ABS, and yeah, they can leach, but I think their leaching points are up in the couple hundred degrees. So I would say it's not a big risk at all. Once again, I think you need to focus. Step one is to focus on how great can I make my soil, and therefore how great can I build, the immune systems of the plants I'm growing so that they're optimized. I mean, I'm all about optimizing the genetic potential of plants, which if you eat those optimized plants, you optimize the genetic potential of people. And that's really a simple system. Optimize, not maximize, optimize. Yeah. So find a way to build good soil in plastic container systems, good. If we have a moment at the end here, I want to talk to you about paramagnetism and what plastic does and how it shields from the earth, okay? Because there's another part to soil that is really, it's been known for many, many years, but it's been ignored. A guy named Phil Callahan. So go ahead and go through your questions, and if you have a minute there, I'd like to.
Sure. We have one more question, and then we can touch on that. We are running a little long, so we'll wrap soon. But I do want to get to this last one from Pam, who said, "I live in the country, and I have a traditional septic system with leach lines. How can I safely grow food in that environment?" And I guess really the underlying question is, are septic systems and leach lines, do they create any hazard when it comes to growing food?
No. The earth, human waste is a problem in mass quantities if it's loaded with pharmaceuticals, because pharmaceuticals are really tough to get out of soil. Sometimes they take over 700 degrees to burn them out, which means you kill everything. You have to sterilize the soil. But in a situation like you have, you probably don't have a lot of drugs going into your leach lines. It's probably pretty damn good soil right around where where your leach field is. So if you're worried about it, you can test it. You can actually test, take that soil and test it and see what's in it. I mean, the biggest problem we have in the urban environment is things like lead and cadmium that have accumulated in there. So anybody that has the ability to test their soil, if they're not sure, that's a great thing to try to do.
Yeah.
Heavy metals are one of your biggest problems usually.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Eric. Well, so we're nearing the end here, and now you wanted to touch on one more thing, and then we'll move towards wrapping up.
Yeah. I mean, what I wanted to say is we're all learning. None of us know it all. And like I said, soil, we know more about the moon than we know about soil. And there's something that our team has been working on. I've been very, very interested in the frequency of soil. What is the optimum frequency, and what kind of vibrations do you have to have in soil that really optimize the plant's ability to store light in the soil's ability to harness light energy. One of them is paramagnetism. It's not magnetism, but it's paramagnetism, and it comes from volcanic rock. Many deposits around the world are higher in paramagnetism, which is a very powerful force. And I'm going to leave it at that because it's very sophisticated. But we are looking at some of the old studies of a guy named Dr. Phil Callahan, and what his studies revealed is that crop yields, just by the charge of the soil or the paramagnetic quality of the soil, can be enhanced 30 to 40%. Now that's massive, and that's just basically, that's not having to do with anything with the minerals other than having the right type of paramagnetic minerals in there. And magnetite's a good one, and there's all kinds of other, montmorillonites, bentonite clays, etc., that have great qualities, and rock dusts. So come from volcanic eruptions. And we haven't had many of those lately. And it's turning out that volcanic eruptions really fertilize the soil. So I'll finish with this. A leading edge thought is soil fertility is actually a measure of how paramagnetic it is. Of course, that also enhances the biological activity in there, and you have to have the minerals in there. But a new study is indicating that paramagnetism may be one of the greatest ways to look at the fertility of soil.
Fascinating. This is what happens when you take a biochemist and an oncologist and a chef and a master gardener and put them together with a big heart and a passion to understand how things work. Thank you, Eric, so much for your brilliance, your wisdom, your dedication,
Thank you.
your perseverance, and your love. We are so honored to have this time with you. And for everybody who is with us right now, I just want to thank you. And I want to light a fire in you, actually. A fire that says yes to growing healthy, fabulous, amazing, delicious, fresh food. A fire that says no to the status quo. A fire that says wherever you are, do something to nurture healthy soil. Whether it's in your backyard, in a little system, in a little container plant, get some compost activity going in your life and find a source of super fresh vegetables, somehow, some way that you can take advantage of in your life. Or maybe be the source for yourself, your family, and your loved ones. Yeah. So I hope we've planted some seeds, hope we've lit some fires. And if you want to go the next step and put all this into action, make sure to check out Whole Life Club. It's an ongoing community. And our goal is to help you apply everything that we're talking about so you can live a welcoming, healthy, organic lifestyle empowerment journey in your whole life. You get recipes, you get wisdom, you get weekly action videos, checklists, you get to submit questions for action hours like this one, transcripts, and lots of other resources. So check it out and join us if you want to go further and sustain this journey with us for your whole life. And Erik, again, I just want to thank you so much for who you are, what you bring, and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Thank you for all you do, Ocean. It's been a pleasure. Very much.
All right. Blessings to everybody. Hope you have a beautiful day and enjoy some fabulous, delicious, fresh, healthy food.
Let's get growing.
Yes.